Here's Shed. Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it. Jamal Shed plays the hero again.
Back to pass. Donovan Smith. Smith steps up in the pocket, unloads it, throws it all the way downfield into the end zone. Tipped, and it is caught. Caught by the Cougars. Caught for a touchdown. Unbelievable. Caught by Stephon Johnson.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to the Scott Holland Podcast. I feel like I've been teasing this each week of the last few or so that we've done a podcast here. The end of Cougar Sports for the 24-25 season. Bobby, we have reached it. We're at the event horizon. This is the last podcast we're going to do where there's a Houston Cougar Sports thing in the future to preview and talk about when we talk about NCAA Outdoors. On this episode, we got a new Cougar head coach to talk about tonight. And because it's the summer, we got a little segment here at the end talking about sports stuff outside of the world of the University of Houston, while U of H sports are a little lighter that we liked, though we're obviously going to prioritize the Cougar stuff to talk about. Bobby, how you doing, friend?
Good, man. Busy work day today, but other than that, I am ready for the next 2 days off. Fingers crossed nothing crazy happens at work. Fingers crossed that I can enjoy myself the next 48 hours and start it off by enjoying some great Cougar talk.
I'll say we're going to cross all the digits for you, buddy, and I'm going to cross all my fingers and toes that there are more of y'all listening that decide to go over to patreon.com/shpodcast, support the work that Bobby and I do. If you like what we do on a weekly basis, is a 10 years running independent Houston Cougar sports podcast. Please go to patreon.com/shpodcast. Giving starts at $5. I used to always say this, and I forgot what the cents per day on this is, Bobby. Not doing my Bauer College of Business degree any favors here. $5 amortized over 30 days is. Oh, I thought you were doing. I thought I saw you doing the calculator. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Hold on, let me think. $5
There's like a math
over
major
30.
Screaming.
Yeah, just yelling
right
at us right now.
I think it's 18, somewhere around 19 cents a day.
Yeah, that's about where I was gonna get to. Yeah.
I people used to say something like that, like the price of a cup of coffee, and honestly, it's probably more expensive for something like that at Starbucks now. Small amount of money, but it goes a long way to support the work that Bobby and I do here, talking Cougars on a weekly basis. Definitely didn't have to edit about 15 seconds out of there as my cat walked on the keyboard. So patreon.com/shpodcast. Please also go and support our friends at Charlie Hustle, charliehustle.com, on the World Wide Web, makers of incredibly comfortable vintage wearables, including a great Houston Cougar collection that Bobby and I wear quite often. If expanding your Cougar apparel collection sounds like a good idea to you, go to not patreon.com, but do go to patreon.com/shpodcast. Do go to charliehustle.com. Use our promo code 1012network, TEN12 network, and you're going to save 15% every time off incredibly comfortable Charlie Hustle wearables. Bobby, got to lead with U of H hiring a head coach. Not a super common occurrence in the grand scheme of things, though one we've, I think, done a few times this year now, gotten to come on here and talk about a new coach. This morning, I believe Justin McLeod of Division I softball was first to report, but confirmed subsequently by numerous others and accompanied by a press release from U of H that the third head coach in program history would be Chrissy Schoonmaker, who was most recently the head coach at George Washington for the past 4 seasons. Her best season there out of the 4 was 2022, where she was the Atlantic 10 Conference Coach of the Year, and the Revolutionaries were the A10 regular season champions. In her most recent season, GW finished 4th in the A10 with a 16-10 league record. We'll say GW had their conference's pitcher of the year in 2 of Schoonmaker's 4 seasons there. They were 25th nationally with a 2.72 team ERA this past season. For comparison, U of H was 244th nationally. Given what a problem pitching has been for most of the last 5-6 seasons in UH softball, we'll say that was an unmistakable positive. Before George Washington, Schoonmaker was on the softball staffs at her alma mater, South Carolina, as well as Harvard, Texas Tech, UConn, and was at U of H for the 2014 season under the program's first head coach, Kyle Hollis, the season where the Cougars made the NCAA tournament. That's, I think, the most basic facts. Bobby, before I pass off to you, I'll just say I'm glad Kristin Vesely is no longer the head coach of this program. And that's my biggest underlying thought, and I hope Coach Schoonmaker succeeds here. But a lot of what we're going to say here is probably some shade of critical or skeptical. And our patrons will know I got on you for saying skeptical when I think you probably meant something else in a patron podcast. That's Vibes Check Part 2. Worth a listen if you have not done so already over on a Patreon feed. This is one where it's skeptical, and I don't think you're going to jump on me for using the word skeptical. I don't know A10 program budget, so there's a chance that Schoonmaker's been overachieving what you could do at GW. I'm just going to say it was a very out of left field hire. I think that's my first thought, Bobby. What do you think about the Cougs' newest head coach?
Yeah, I think there are some goods. One, Kristin Vesely's not the head coach anymore. Major win there, no matter how you slice it. But we are a part of a network that focuses quite heavily on softball and knows a lot about softball, right? They run a Big 12 softball show. Like it's good to be a part of it. I've learned more about softball just in the last 2 years, even
Seconded.
though I thought
Yep.
I think I knew quite a bit about college softball, or a decent amount, but not like those guys do. And when it was announced, it was a shock to them, and they were like, I don't know much about this person. And that's quite that makes you kind of go, huh, really? It makes you just stop for a second. And the people who know softball don't know Coach Schoonmaker. So just really an interesting kind of vibe there. You look at the resume, and I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything terrible on it that makes me give pause, but there's also nothing on the resume that gets me excited. I think it's better than what we had before. But yeah, I think some of the names we were throwing out there was a lot more to be excited about than what we ended up getting. Not that I think this is a bad hire or that this is a disappointing hire. It's just, to your point, it's a little skeptical. It makes you raise a couple of eyebrows. It makes you wonder, who did they offer the job to first? Because I have a hard time believing that this was our first choice. If it was our first choice, why did it take a month? Right? It's not like GW was in the Women's College World Series or anything like that.
Have been on action for over a month, since May 8th. I looked it up, was their last game played.
Yeah, you and I kind of speculated last week that like we thought maybe it was going to be one of the Texas assistants because the fact that they were waiting this long to do this. I don't know what happened here, right? Like we've heard from people that know more than we do to the inner workings of athletic programs that this wasn't the first choice. And I kind of have to believe that considering it took a month, right? So I guess it was kind of one of those situations where you're going to have, maybe the program is at such a low point in terms of performance that a lot of coaches, especially assistants, are holding out for better jobs that they think will be a little bit easier to step into. Now, you look at Coach Schoonmaker's resume, she did pretty good at GW. I don't think she did poorly, but at the same time, you do have to question a little bit, why are we taking the head coach of the fourth team in the A10 before we bring in somebody else, right? The one thing I do like is that she is a previous head coach. I think that's really nice, right? Because we've seen this with assistant coaches before. Everybody has these ideas of how I'm going to run a program, but until you're actually running a program, you don't really know. And there's a learning curve, right? And we spoke with Coach Lasperia about this, about going from an assistant to being the head coach, and what the difference was when we interviewed her back in, I think that was January, probably?
Yep.
January, February, something like that. And how different it is running your own program. The buck stops with you. So we're not going to have as big of an adjustment period going from an assistant and having to learn like, oh, I recruit differently as the head coach. So that's a positive to me that we got somebody who has experience being a head coach. But there are definitely some question marks that you can raise with this hire.
You have to squint to kind of find the positives. Like, they're there. GW pitched well, which is something U of H hasn't done as a team since the last tournament team. I think that alone, the fact that you might have a coach that actually knows how to manage a college pitching staff might raise the floor a bit, but I don't think I can make the case that it's raising the floor enough to that's, oh, you're going to be a regular postseason team again, or anything like that. Anything that you could really get the fan base excited about. I think the easiest red meat in terms of what you could be critical about with this hire is the fact that there are multiple different smaller conference college head coaches within a couple 100 miles or so of Houston who had, in no uncertain terms, dramatically better resumes than what Schoonmaker has coming in here. And like you said, it's hard to square that the hiring process took almost a month from the announcement of Vesely's dismissal on May 13th to the hire today, June 10th. And then you landed a head coach whose team hasn't been playing that entire time. I mean, try as I might, I can't think of why this happens unless you struck out on a number of other coaches, unless you were banking on or at least hoping. And from what we've heard, it certainly sounds like it was more hoping, which isn't a great thing for your athletic department to be doing, that you had a shot at an assistant on a team that was still playing at the Softball College World Series in OKC. Didn't get coach meeting that description. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And nothing that we've heard about the hiring process made it sound like U of H was conducting a really organized, well thought out search. And I've seen the fact that Schoonmaker was a previous U of H assistant mentioned, and it was under U of H's most successful softball head coach, Kyle Hollis, for the 2014 season. That was a NCAA tournament team. But I mean, one season as an assistant in a different era of the sport, I don't think should dramatically change anyone's viewpoint on a coaching hire for better or worse. I mean, I think you got to compare and contrast how Texas Tech went about filling their softball head coach vacancy an offseason ago and how U of H filled it now. Tech hired Jerry Glasgow, who had won 77% of his games at Ooh La La and was a well-respected college assistant travel ball coach before that. They gave him enough NIL backing to land the biggest prospect in the portal, Nyjah Kennedy, and they were in the College World Series. They were the runner-up. They got a ton of larger exposure from the millions of eyeballs of people watching the finals on ESPN in OKC. What does U of H do? U of H hires the coach of the fourth best A10 program who factually has not ever been to the NCAAs as a head coach. And I mean, the difference here is probably money first and foremost, but you got to throw a little bit of lack of imagination or ambition part of it as well. You hired a head coach that probably was very excited to get any Big 12 job. You hired a head coach that probably wasn't in a lot of other searches. If I had to put percentages on it, I would say 90% money and then maybe the remaining 10% lack of imagination or ambition. It's not a hire that you could pitch to the fan base as we're going to really start getting serious about softball. There's just no way you could spin the hire that way. We have a patron of the show who's a huge softball fan and is a general college softball fan the way I would say that I'm a general college basketball fan, loves and follows the sport at large. So I've been talking to this patron a lot over the past month about potential candidates for the job. And the first words this person messaged me when I said, hey, what do you think about this hire? Were, quote, I had to Google her, unquote. And this is somebody, Bobby, who I've probably kicked around a dozen different candidates with over the past month or so. Someone who's very, very, very plugged into the sport. You mentioned 1012 Network, our friends over there, very plugged into the sport. Schoonmaker was very out of left field to them. Hope I'm wrong. I hope this head coach can get U of H softball back to the NCAA tournament, or at least out of being the worst Big 12 softball program. Not much evidence that's the case here, other than maybe you could slightly raise the program's floor a bit.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen a ton of the evidence. I hope I'm wrong. And I'm going into this open-minded and excited to see what happens. I do just kind of raise a couple of question marks and go, okay, interesting.
I guess it's a compliment to a lot of U of H's recent head coaching hires that this is the first one in a while that we've come on here and been kind of openly underwhelmed about. I was genuinely trying to remember the last one earlier when I was doing my notes. It might have been the Applewhite hire in football.
Yeah, and the Applewhite one, that's one of my favorite I told you so moments that I have with you. That one always makes me smile.
We love an I told you so moment.
We do. If there's one thing we like on this show, it is an I told you so moment. I'm trying to think. Yeah, probably Applewhite. I don't know why my brain went to James Dickey as well.
I mean, yeah, but James Dickey's further
that
back.
was that's why I'm like, wait, hold on.
I mean, honestly, yeah, it does. I did kind of like it because remember James Dickey. I think it was like we were thinking it was going to be Gillespie, but that was nixed by Couture. And it was like James Dickey. It was like Texas Tech's coach. I'm like, wait a minute. But Texas Tech's coach has mostly been Bob Knight. No. The head coach before Bob Knight from over a decade before.
Yeah.
Who had like one very, very good team there, but like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Not very much after that. I would say Applewhite because like we were excited about Holgerson at the time. Didn't pan out, but I'm not going to spin it. We were excited at the time. Like Jaime Frias was a notable, I think, recent failure, but I'm not going to spin it. You can go back and listen to me like the end of 2021 talking about the hire. Yeah, good credentials. Credentials and translate there. Like I'm never going to come on this show and default take the negative position because I love U of H. I attended U of H. U of H will always be my team, good, bad, indifferent. But I'm not going to come on here. I'm not going to come on here and do the party line. I'm not going to come on here and automatically say whatever U of H did was bad. I want Chrissy Schoonmaker to succeed as the head coach here. I want that stated in no uncertain terms. But I'm not going to come on here and bullshit you, the people who listen to us. I'm not going to come on here and give U of H's party line or act like I didn't groan loudly when I read in the press release Eddie Nunez talking about, they did an exhaustive national search or whatever his fucking language on that was.
Yeah.
I won't also discount the positives. I think this will probably be a team that pitches better in 2026. I'm decently confident saying that. But I said before, it's not the kind of hire that's gonna really make you. And again, the last three have been like Kat Adamovich was a hire way better than I thought our tennis program for all its historic struggles could make. Like an up and coming young coach by any definition. Ben Williams with soccer, same deal. Up and coming young coach who had recent success, took a team to the tournament.
Yeah.
Matthew Mitchell, established coach with some time out of the game, but a coach with a really impeccable resume that allows you to be like, okay, well, he's been out of the game a bit, but man, when he was in the game, this guy was very, very good at it and showed no signs of slowing down right before he did end up retiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those hires, you don't have to squint at it too hard. Those three, it's like talk yourself into them. Tanika Jameson, when she succeeded, Ryan Walker-Merker for swimming and diving. I was like, yeah, top assistant from a top 25 program. Seems pretty good, and it's worked out really well for that program. Lydia Lasprilla, assistant for the first ever program head coach, and a big part of building U of H women's golf into what it was.
Yep.
Has worked out very well, and it made sense at the time. Like this. Yeah, man. You can if you're listening to this, you can hear the doubts that Bobby and I have about it.
Yep. We'll see. And yeah, no, we're definitely gonna have to wait and see. I think that's more of the way I would describe is I'm in a wait and see rather than underwhelmed or skeptical or anything like that. I think I'm more like, well, I gotta kind of trust that these people, that our athletic department did their job, they did their research, and they hired the person they think is best. I might disagree that I think this might be the best hire, but I'm more than happy to be wrong. I know we said we love I told you so around here. I would love to be wrong about this one.
No doubt. Same here. Like we're going to root for this coach to succeed, but I'm also not going to proverbially piss down your leg of the listener and tell you it's raining. I'm not going to come on here and not say exactly how I feel about this hire.
Yep.
Just kind of mixed. But I'll tell you, Bobby, what I'm not mixed about is being excited that we get to have our annual curtain closer to talk about in the athletics season, the NCAA Outdoor Track and Field Championships, which will be held at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon, the temple of college track and field, really the temple of track and field generally, and you'll have a number of different Cougars competing. I'm not going to repeat my full spiel about why you, the listener, should watch the Outdoor Track and Field Championships, but my short version, it's a very fun event where you could see U of H athletes competing to be the best of the best in their sport. And there's also a pretty good chance that you see some future Olympians competing in this championship. U of H is going to be sending 5 athletes in a relay to compete at outdoors, all from the men's team. Bobby, quick rundown of them, if you'll allow me.
Let's go.
So I'll start with Grant Levesque, the athlete to compete least recently, decathlete, last competed at Big 12 Outdoors, will be representing the University of Houston for the first time at NCAA Outdoors, earning his spot from a second-place performance in the Big 12 Outdoor Championships last month. He's a 2-time Big 12 Indoor Heptathlon champion and placed 10th at that event in the 2024 NCAA Indoors. That was during his first U of H season. The last time Levesque was at NCAA Outdoors competing in the decathlon, he was competing for the Rice Owls in 2023 and placed 9th. That year, his performance at Big 12 Outdoors is the current 12th best performance in the current outdoor season. So hopefully you can get Grant Levesque up there and get you some points from that event. We had the heartbreak that we talked about from prelims of the 4x1 relay, missing qualifying for outdoors by one spot, but we will still have the 4x4 relay representing the Cougars with 3 freshmen and Trey East III, looking to do what the Cougar women did last year in the 4x4 and make the finals and score some serious points, get some All-American honors. Trey East will also be representing the Cougars in the 400-meter dash, an event near and dear to my heart from the days of Kamari Montgomery winning it at the 2019 Outdoor Championships. And the one event where you have multiple Cougars is the 110 hurdles. John Adasola and Jamar Marshall Jr. will be finishing their college careers representing the Cougs in this event. I think those two guys, particularly Marshall, are your best chances to see a Cougar athlete in the podium. And last but not least, you also have Andrea Mita competing in the high jump. This will be Mita's second trip to NCAA Outdoors and 2 seasons competing for the U of H program. He finished 17th last year in Eugene, and this year he will actually be the lone Big 12 representative in this event. Bobby, what are you watching from these 5 events?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned last week, Grant Levesque in the decathlon is going to be super fun. There's just a lot of events, and it's really fun to always watch the decathlon. So I'll keep my eye on that. Also, the 4x4 going in the in that relay, that's always, when there's 3 freshmen in it, that's always super fun to kind of watch the future of the program there. So those are going to be the 2 that I really have my eye on, over anything. Those are going to be the ones I'm really checking the results page on. So those are the ones, those are the 2 I in particular am pretty excited about.
Yeah, I've talked a lot in here about how we really like when there's an athlete in an event that we haven't really seen a Cougar track and field athlete excel at previously. Mm-hmm. And it's been cool to see, since he came over from the Rice program, what Grant Levesque has done for you in the various multis events and indoors and outdoors. So hope he continues that in Eugene. And we'll just mention for the listeners, if you are someone interested in watching, starts tomorrow. That'll be Wednesday, June 11th. U of H's events start on Wednesday. You have the decathlon events running Wednesday and Thursday, and all of the sprinting events and relays will be on Wednesday. This will be semifinals. The first event featuring U of H athletes, besides the decathlon, which starts way before everything else, will be the 110 hurdles. Semifinals will be Wednesday night, scheduled to start at 7:08 Central Time, though with a track meet, these things can be kind of fluid, but sometime around then. Wednesday night's coverage will actually be on the main ESPN, and you have those athletes, the 110 hurdles, 400 meters, and 4x4. Those athletes will be competing with a chance to earn their way into Friday's finals, where they will hopefully have a number of athletes joining Andrea Mita. The men's high jump finals will be on Friday, and all of those days, events and outdoor coverage will be on ESPN2. Really can't wait to watch these athletes compete, and hopefully some of y'all will be joining us and watching.
Yeah, it should be a fun watch.
So our last Cougar coverage for tonight is going to be a little thing that I called it doing my own assistant coach hire corner, because you had 3 different sports make a head coaching hire in the past couple weeks. Some of these are the last couple days, some of these are the past couple weeks, and we just kind of waited until there was a critical mass of news here. So 3 different programs, the Cougar baseball, soccer, and tennis programs, made assistant coaching hires, and we're going to talk about them in that order, if you will allow me, Bobby.
Let's go.
So I'll mention the baseball hire first. Like I said, we had the simultaneous movement of Clay Van Hook leaving to join David Pierce's staff at Rice, and we found out replacing will be Kyle Chesborough. That's how I've seen that name pronounced previously. I know it's spelled like Cheeseborough, but I think it's normally pronounced Chesborough. If it's Cheeseborough, Kyle, and your extended family, my apologies. Who was most recently on staff at Mississippi State for the last 8 seasons there. The most recent title I could find for him at Mississippi State was assistant coaching. Camp coordinator, was on Chris Lamonis' staff, which won the 2021 national title, and then also went to the College World Series in 2019. They returned to the NCAA postseason in 2024 after uncharacteristically poor 22 and 23 seasons. Lamonis was actually let go mid-season at the end of April, and they made one of their assistants, Justin Parker, as the interim. won their final 3 regular season series and were able to make it to the NCAA Tallahassee Regional, where they made the regional finals but were eliminated by Florida State. Quick aside, Bobby. I get that the standards at Mississippi State are very high, and thus I don't think this was an insanely quick hook for an SEC program with recent history, and I think some declining results. It's just wild to be the fan of a college baseball program that hasn't made the tournament in 7 years, and to see another program fire a national title winning coach with multiple Omaha appearances when I do bad things right now just to see my team playing the regional round. It's just kind of funny juxtaposition there.
Yeah, it's always that's always kind of funny when you just think of expectations that different teams have. I would love to be in the situation where a coach makes a regional and that's not good enough, to your point. I think that would be awesome. In terms of the hire, I think I told you this when I first saw it. Anytime you can get an SEC assistant, that's usually pretty good, especially one that has been around a program that has had as much success as that Mississippi State team has. Granted, the staff got let go. You don't really know what you're getting, but the fact that we kind of are curious about what this team is going to look like in the future, the fact that you got an assistant that is from an SEC program that's been pretty successful, he probably could have gone to a bunch of different places. If I had to assume, somebody would have wanted him on their staff somewhere, and he's coming to the to Cullen Boulevard. Super exciting there.
Yeah, my initial thought, I think it was you were the first person actually texting at the hire, was just, okay, cool. Like, we landed an assistant coach from a staff that just got fired. The more I dug into it, the more I actually think on the merits. Like, Chesborough's pretty good hire. We'll mention also previously worked on Indiana staff when Lamanis was the head coach there. And Chesborough and Lamanis were both on staff at Louisville, where Chesborough actually played in 2008 and 2009, originally from the DFW Metroplex. And this will be, I believe, his first college job back in the state of Texas. And I'm not someone who can speak to Mississippi State's most recent season with a ton of expertise, but Chesborough was their third base coach and also worked with hitters and catchers. And I saw a couple, but by no means all Mississippi State fans say they didn't like his send and go decisions from third base. But I don't know, man. I've been a baseball fan almost my whole life, and you'd be hard pressed to find a college or MLB fan base that doesn't like criticize send and go decisions from a third base coach. I saw you make a face when I brought that up, because it's like, it's like, okay, like if he sends them and they get thrown out, you're just like, it's the ultimate baseball fan, what's the word, armchair quarterback situation.
Yeah, it's like you don't always, you question when it goes poorly, but you don't look at the 900 runs they score where he sent them correctly. Like, it's not like whenever somebody questions that, it's not like they're questioning the easy ones. Like, it's in the moment, it's quick. He's got to determine the kid running his speed, the guy out there's arm, like he's looking at a bunch of different things. And like, yeah, it's pretty easy to just be like, oh, he should have sent him there. Like, and if he gets thrown out, you go, whoa, why didn't he hold him up? Like, it's a classic example of, to your point, armchair quarterbacking. Well, he should have thrown to this guy. Look, running down the seam, the tight end was wide open. Why did he throw it to the wide receiver on the outside? It's like, because you're looking at the all 22, it's easy to see it when you're 6'2" and you're trying to figure out who's coming, what's coming. Like, it can be a little difficult sometimes, and sometimes you make a bad decision. And like, it's probably not that bad of a decision. It's just a classic thing where it's like, oh, well, if he would have sent them, it's so easy to question it when they do the opposite of what you think they should have done. It's one of the things is when I watch football with people and they are like, I can't believe, why do we keep running it? Why do they keep running it? Why do they keep running it? And you're like, just pass the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball. And then they run play action and they're able to throw it deep. And it's like, and then people are like, oh, well, see, we should have been throwing it the whole time. And it's like, no.
You were setting it up.
You were setting up the play action here. Like, and so it's kind of like that with sending a runner or keeping the runner there. Like, it's easy to say, well, why would we do that when it doesn't work?
And if he was responsible for Mississippi State's hitters, that group was definitely superior to their pitching this season. Mm-hmm. The Dogs hit a hair under 300 with 58 home runs against SEC competition. Like, that's good. That's a number without context. I'll take it. Very, very good. And also, I completely missed this until I started doing this research. Former Cougar player Ace Reese, who played for U of H in 2024 as a freshman, hit 21 home runs for the season, led the Dogs in batting average, and hit 402 in SEC play. Like, Reese was a promising freshman for U of H, but when he left for Mississippi State, it was kind of like, okay, well, he's going to an SEC program. I get it. But I didn't think, oh, yeah, this guy is going to go in there and be one of the best hitters in the SEC. Like, that speaks to some ability by that staff, which Chesbro is a part of, to at least develop guys. I would say the less good is that he was, the nominal guy for overseeing Mississippi State's catchers, was a former college catcher himself. Mississippi State's catchers had 15 pass balls in the 2025 season compared to their opponents, who had 5. Broadly, Mississippi State fielded worse than their opponents, which was not a strength of the U of H program last season.
I was going to say, it's not like errors weren't a problem here either.
Yeah. I'm not any more optimistic about U of H's hopes for making the 2026 tournament now than I was a week ago. But I will also say a good assistant coaching hire, considering the larger circumstance, a better hire than I would have thought now that I've actually dug in on his credentials than I thought we could make with the head coach here being on an expiring deal for the coming season.
Yeah, I think it might not be the prettiest or the sexiest hire, but I think it's definitely a hire that you can get excited about. Like I said, anytime you can get an assistant baseball coach from an SEC school, that's usually somebody who has some talent. We kind of talked about our new defensive coordinator in football and how, look, maybe somebody else came in and started calling plays last year, and that's when we saw a spike in Florida's performance. But he had enough talent to get him there where Saban thought he was worthy of being on staff. Things like that. It's kind of the same. That's kind of the same vibe I get from our baseball assistants. If you can get a baseball assistant from the SEC, that means somebody with a lot of talent who has won a lot of baseball games thinks that this guy is worthy enough and has a good enough baseball brain that they can do a good job.
Yeah. Not a knock your socks off hire, but undoubtedly better than what I thought we could have done for a vacancy on staff.
Yep.
And it's like Clay Van Hook, happy trails to him. He came to Houston in large part to, get the treatment for his child's, I think, rare disease that only like the medical center offers. So yeah. I'm glad he's able to stay in Houston and coach at Rice. But also it's not just like, oh man, we can't believe we lost Clay Van Hook and the great effect he had on our hitters. Like, we're in a terribly good hitting team this year.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not like that's a huge loss there on paper either. And for a program that's a little earlier in its cycle, Monday, U of H made official the hire of new soccer assistant coach Peter Mulamba to join Ben Williams in his first season at U of H. Mulamba's a familiar face for Williams. He was on the Stephen F. Austin staff with him in 2024, and the two were on the UTSA staff together in 2023 as well. Before 2023, Mulamba coached in the UPSL, the United Pro Soccer League, where his Alamo City Soccer Club won 78% of its games over 7 split-year seasons. Regularly were among the best teams in U.S. Soccer's 4th-tier league, which is below MLS in the 2 USL leagues. Mulamba's also coached in private soccer training and is part of his family's soccer development company. He and his siblings all played U.S. college soccer. When he was on the SFA staff, Mulamba's primary assistant responsibility was the Lady Jacks offense, and they ended up being top 5 in Division I in scoring. I like that we're bringing an assistant that was part of that incredible 2024 SFA season with Williams, and kind of like Williams has those connections in coaching grassroots soccer. I like that we have someone on staff who doesn't have necessarily the traditional college coaching youth national team experience that, I'm going to be honest, we saw maybe not translate as well as we expected with your last head coach, Jaime Frias, who had no shortage of the traditional experience on his resume. Like, you might be, as a U of H program that struggled historically, best served by looking at people who have coached in grassroots, who have coached at the lower level of pro soccer, than people who maybe have coached in the more established places. Also, we'll mention, because I don't believe we mentioned her back when she was hired earlier this spring, Williams' first assistant hire, Izzy Vicari, who will be coaching the Cougar goalkeepers. Vicari was also on that SFA staff last season, played collegiately until the fall of 2022, which makes me feel absolutely ancient, Bobby, where she was an all-MAC goalkeeper at Miami, Ohio, where Williams is assistant. That's the connection there. I would say no idea what it translates to for the coming soccer season, but also unmistakably positive signs that two of Williams' SFA assistants and also several players wanted to follow him to U of H. That this is a leader both as a head coach with his assistants and also players that his various charges want to follow into battle with, which I think is cool. I think can only be a positive, even if, as always with soccer, our expectations are kind of measured because this is a program in 20-something years that has not made the tournament.
Yeah, I think for me, the exciting part is exactly what you said, that his staff wants to follow him. You don't always see that. And so the fact that they hear him, that they listen to him, and that he treated them well enough to want to move over to U of H with them. It's not like this was a small change for everybody going from SFA to Houston. It's going to be a big challenge for them. But to see his staff want to follow him and believe in the process and what they can do there, it's a lot like a player moving from a lower level into the Big 12. This is a big opportunity for them as well. So going to be super exciting during all that as well. Hopefully it works out for the soccer program.
Yeah, no doubt. And last but not least, actually chronologically the least recent of all these reported hires, except for Vicari in this assistant coach hire corner segment. But Cougar Tennis will have a new assistant coach for the 25-26 season, as former Mizzou head coach Chris Wooten will reunite with Kat Adamovich at U of H. Adamovich was Mizzou's assistant under Wooten immediately before she took the head coaching job at Grand Canyon University. It has a super interesting backstory. His time as Mizzou head coach was challenging, though everything I read is that he did a great job as the interim head coach. He'd actually been hired prior to the 2019-20 season as their associate head coach, and then during COVID was promoted as interim. A Mizzou player won their ITA regional for the first time in program history. When he was there, multiple players qualifying individually for the singles and doubles championships and also breaking a multi-season SEC losing streak. Bit more of a struggle after that first season, but the SEC is an absolutely brutal league for women's tennis. I would say absolutely as good, if not better, than the higher profile sports that you think, oh, the SEC is dominant in, like football and baseball. Like, it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to have an SEC team playing for and likely winning the championship on the women's side. Pretty good on the men's side as well, but especially so on the women's side. Before he was the head coach at Mizzou, Wooten was an assistant coach at USC, where the women of Troy improved dramatically after his arrival on staff. They finished over 100 spots better than the previous season and in the top 50 his first year, and then finished in the top 25 in 2019, his second and final year there. He coached multiple top 50 singles players and NCAA tournament semifinalists Ariana Valdez and Angela Kulikov during that 2019 season. Before that, he was the men's and women's tennis assistant coach at D3 Williams College, where he was a part of Williams' 2017 D3 national championship team. His head coach there, Allison Swain, actually got hired as USC's head coach, where she's still serving at present time. And then Wooten followed her to LA. Really interesting backstory before that, though. He was an elite junior tennis player from the Dallas area, won multiple state titles at Highland Park, and like a lot of elite U.S. junior players, went straight to the ATP Tour in the mid-90s. Didn't work out that well there, though did get multiple top 100 wins during his time on tour. Just an absolutely merciless way to make a living. After that, he coached pro-level players, served as a director of tennis, worked in private business, and then in his 30s decided to go back and play college tennis. He played at Mississippi College from 2011 to 13 and then finished his career at UT Tyler, which is somewhat of a non-Division I tennis power. Bobby, in 2015, he was the oldest ever All-American at 39. He was an NCAA doubles All-American. And no offense to the numerous Australian guys who have been a bit older than average and have come over here to punt, but it's insanely hard, even at the non-D1 level, to be an All-American level tennis player at almost 40 years old. I don't care what your pedigree is. Like, you're playing against guys 17, 18 years younger than you. Like, teams have discovered, especially the men's side, that the NCAA has been pretty lax about early 20-something European lower-level tour guys coming over here. And you get the advantages of like a 23, 24-year-old guy playing against 19, 20-year-olds because there's a lot of physical development during that period. You have the opposite problem here. So really cool backstory. Definitely someone who has the credentials I'd want from the assistant coach here. And I think it can only be a positive that Adamovich and Wooten know each other well from working together previously.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool that you got a former Big 12 head coach. Super cool kind of coaching background. That's That's really nice to see. I know Coach Adamovich has been very happy with this hire. So yeah, I can't say I can speak a ton about what I believe is how he's going to impact this program, because let's be honest, I can read about his history and I can see a lot of the facts that he had top 50 players, things like that, and all that sounds great. I can't speak to how he's going to do as an assistant coach or anything like that with any kind of certainty or any kind of belief. I'm following you, my tennis leader. I am following you here, bud.
Like I said, I think it'd only be a positive that it's two coaches who've worked together before previously. This is no knock on Georgia Pazan, your previous assistant and accomplished U of H tennis alumna, and somebody who, we wish happy trails to her and her wife, former UH volleyball assistant Jill Lawyers, wherever life takes the two of them next. But again, I think it can only be the positive that you have coaches now who have both worked together. You can only be more cohesive and effective as a result of that. What that's going to actually translate into, not exactly sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm generally positive. All right, Bobby, really quick, because we're shorter than usual because, quite frankly, it's almost mid-June during a college sports season that is almost entirely over other than the track and field championships. So if you want, we'll talk about a sports thing. I will talk about a sports thing from the past week that I really enjoyed. You will talk about a sports thing from the coming week that you're really excited about. You go with that, bud?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I had to talk about just briefly, and I'm going to give myself about a 5-minute time limit here. I'm noting the time here at the top. The French Open was an absolute classic this year. It's tennis, it's clay court tennis. It's the premier clay court tennis event, part of the Tennis Grand Slam. French Open, Wimbledon, US Open, Australian Open, those 4 over a season. I think one of my favorite, I'm just a sucker for clay court tennis. And it was a really cool, if you're someone who's like, okay, but like, you're vaguely aware, Americans usually do terrible at this. Actually, a pretty good year for Americans. Coco Gauff won the women's side against Aryna Sabalenka, the women's number 1, who's been fantastic. I think very much in Gauff's case, cemented her arrival as probably the best U.S. women's player since the Williams sisters. There's been some other good ones, but I would say a cut above what you've seen from maybe like Jessica Pegula or Madison Keys, who are good, very good women's players, but not to the level of, say, the Williamses. And you had on the men's side, where it's been, I think, a bit tougher sledding. Americans like Tommy Paul and Francis Tiafoe made the quarterfinals. Then Ben Shelton also made the round of 16. Ben Shelton, I think definitely an American worth watching for the longer term, but we got an absolute classic of a final. Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner. I don't know if you've seen this, Bobby. I know I've told you, like, you've seen the highlights, and I've, told you about what an absolute classic was. 5 hours and 29 minutes, and just nearly all of it just incredibly dramatic. And literally at one point, Jannik Sinner in the deciding set, Bobby's up 5-3 and 40 love. You know anything about tennis, that means Sinner literally had to win 1 point in the next couple, and it's over with. He's the French Open champion. Alcaraz fights back, forces the 3rd tiebreaker in 5 sets, and eventually wins 10-2 in the tiebreaker. Takes an absolute classic at Roland Garros, an event that I think is criminally underrated by tennis online people who want to say, oh, clay court tennis is bad to watch. I love the unpredictability of playing on dirt. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I think it's an underrated event, but I don't think after that Sinner Alcaraz final that I think no one's underrated. Like, that was an all-time classic, and I feel privileged I got to watch the last 3 hours, and I just had to get in front of a microphone and talk about it. It was really, really good. If you haven't done so already, I would encourage y'all to find some highlights of it and just take it. It's like the winner Alcaraz hits, and I get it. Like, at the time he hits the winner, he's up 9-2, so if he messes up that shot, oh no, he's up 9-3 in this situation. Like, he was in a situation where you could be inherently risk-taking, but the only word I've been able to come up with, he hit just an absolutely audacious shot that got the barest amount of the line to beat Sinner. Like, it's the kind of shot that I think it's going to be on tennis highlights and sports highlights generally for the next decades. So I'll shut up about the French Open, Bobby, and hear the events that you're excited about for the coming week.
Yeah, I think the big one for me is next week, or no, not next week. In 2 days is the U.S. Open for golf. So as you can tell, we love to talk tennis and golf here. The thing that really gets me excited, one is the U.S. Open's always the hardest test in golf every year. The USGA really tries to soup it up. But what, like I said, is the most exciting part is the course that it's at is a course called Oakmont, historically one of the, if not the hardest courses in the world. And they have decided they are going to make it super tough. Rough is at about 5 inches. So if you want to watch a golf massacre, I really think the U.S. Open's going to be for you. I mean, Rory was out here.
He shot an 81, right?
Yeah, shot an 81 with finished with 2 birdies. And he's like, I thought I played pretty well. So it's going to be an absolute massacre. It's going to be fun to watch. You might see more than one round in the 90s, which makes me feel really good about myself, even though I would shoot a 145 out there. Just seeing a professional with a 9 next to his starting his score might make me feel a little better about myself. But overall, it's always just a fun tournament. Ends on Father's Day, so there's always a fairly emotional moment with that. So it's gonna be fun. It's going to be a massacre out there. It's going to be ugly, but yeah.
You might get me to watch 1 or 2 hours of this on Sunday. You've successfully sold me on the U.S. Open.
Perfect.
All right, Bobby, I think that's all the sports talk. Take us home.
All right, well, that is it for this episode. As Sam said, we have a shorter episode this week just because, to Sam's point, it's just not as busy. But if you appreciate the work that Sam and I do, after work, we come here, we do our research in our off time. If you appreciate that and you want to throw some dollars behind it, for as little as $5 a month, we will also get you some awesome premium content that we have coming up in the summer and throughout the entire sports season. We put out premium content. So just super fun, super way to stay in touch with your Cougs. But for $5 a month, you can visit us at Patreon, patreon.com/SH podcast. And if you want to give us some feedback, you can also hit us up on social media. You can find us on Twitter at SH podcast. You can find us on Blue Sky at bsky podcast.bsky.social.
Hey, he nailed it.
Sorry. I was like bsky.social.podcast. That doesn't sound right.
That's not right.
Yeah, that's not right. Podcast.bsky.social. You can find us on there. Give us your feedback there. If you are 6 months in and you haven't touched social media this year, you can always reach us via Gmail, shpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an old-fashioned email, and we will make sure we get back to you. And Sam, what do we always say?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!